Hello YouTube. Bane666 here. Welcome to Propaganda of Toxic Feminism, the series in which I expose and debunk falsehoods, misconceptions, and outright lies spread about the men's rights movement. So let's get stuck into it.
Here are 5 more stupid things about the men's rights movement. Selective acceptance. Men's rights activists don't typically exhibit terribly positive attitudes toward women.
And what Steve means here is, MRAs are critical of both male and female feminists, the key word being feminist, but he's only concerned about criticism of female feminists, as feminism has taught him that males don't matter. Next.
But there are exceptions. For example, women who agree with them that feminism is at best unnecessary and at worst oppressive and misandrist.
So in other words, it's not women that MRAs have an issue with, but feminists. Which means both male and female feminists, but Steve is only concerned about the criticism of female feminists, as feminism has taught him that males don't matter. Next.
Or, now you know what? That's it. Women who reject feminism are highly favored by MRAs. They're held up as evidence that theirs is a legitimate ideology based on facts and reasonable assumptions, not a hate movement based on projection, fears of inadequacy, and unhinged misogyny.
And here's Steve, lacking a legitimate ideology based on facts and reasonable assumptions, has to rely on hate speech and the projection of his own inadequacy to spread his misandry. And that's all he does his entire video. Because feminism has taught him that males don't matter.
Anyway, if MRAs hate women so much, why are there women who agree with them?
No, the actual question should be, if MRAs hate women so much, then why are there female MRAs who have so much respect within the movement? You know, the same females who get attacked and criticized by both male and female feminists. But that's not misogyny, is it, Steve? Why, it's almost like you are only focusing on the criticism of female feminists, as an attempt to derail the conversation, and falsely label us all as bigots. Oh, and because feminism has taught you that males don't matter, isn't that right, Steve? Or are you going to stick up for the male feminists as well? Next.
Funny how that same logic doesn't seem to apply to men who support feminism.
Men who support feminism? You mean male allies, don't you, Steve? Because men cannot call themselves feminists without some feminists criticizing them. Next. Next we have an article from Manboobz Futrelle. It's called, Toronto Police Investigating PUA, who posted videos saying a woman should be stabbed and cut up into tiny pieces. The article states, well, this is pretty freaking disturbing. Metro News reports that Toronto police are looking closely at video of a Toronto pickup artist who filmed himself muttering about stabbing a girl who turned him down. She deserves to fucking like stabbed and cut up into tiny pieces for that shit, he says. Like, I would fucking take her and her boyfriend and all her fucking friends down. Fucking worthless pieces of shit. She thinks she's all that, just because she has the looks and shit. I'll show all these little bitches one day. In a second clip, Sold Death appears to try to purchase a knife from a grocery store. After news of this began to spread, someone who described himself as EJ, the head coach of T.Pickup, a group that holds PUA boot camps and coaching in the Yonge Dundas area, called Metro Monday evening after speaking with Sold Death. He said some of his comments had been misunderstood. This whole thing about getting them back, all he was talking about is basically getting them back by getting a really good-looking girl and rubbing it in their face, he said. Apparently, there is some mysterious language that resembles English in which, she deserves to fucking like stabbed and cut up into tiny pieces for that shit, actually means, rubbing it in their face. As for talking about stabbing a woman and cutting her up, EJ said Sold Death is not the type of person to do that. so reassuring. The video in which X-Soul Death talks about looking for a knife at a grocery store was taken out of context, EJ said. Basically the whole reason he was asking for this knife was to find the cutlery section and they were not really understanding the English, he said. And then there was this plot twist. Update: X-Soul Death, the creator of the YouTube videos, appears to be EJ, the head coach of T.Pickup. Now at this point in the video, you are probably wondering why I'm featuring a We Hunted the Manboobz story about a seemingly deranged pickup artist. Well, the answer to that is in the next paragraph. Creepy as hell. While X-Soul Death's YouTube channel has been taken down, what appears to be his Google Plus profile is still up. I've archived it here. In addition to posts about his own videos and a wide assortment of popular YouTube prank videos, X-Soul Death posts videos from other PUAs as well as from anti-feminist, philosopher, and self-described men's rights activist Stefan Molyneux, and from obsessively anti-feminist YouTuber Bane666AU, whose frequently hour-long videos feature him as a talking skull in a pitcher of Kool-Aid. That's poison Kool-Aid Futrelle, you know, the stuff you drink by the truckload. But isn't this interesting? Dave, Manboobz Futrelle, it seems, is now relying on guilt by association. And by association, I mean some unknown subscriber out of almost 14,000, because you know, I do extensive background checks on everyone before letting them sub to me, right? And Steph has 239,000 subs, I assume he knows each of them intimately, right? If Manboobz Futrelle bothered watching my hour-long obsessively anti-feminist videos, as he calls them, he would know that I'm the last person to ever support, encourage, or condone anything like what X-Soul Death has been accused of. And I think it's safe to say the same about Steph. And I can't imagine my videos would be hugely popular amongst many pickup artists, as I've been somewhat critical of them in the past. Their philosophy, if you want to call it that, runs counter to mine. They seek self-validation through chasing pussy and attention from females, whereas I see myself as having more value than just my dick. Don't get me wrong, I love my dick, I never leave home without it, but there is a lot more to me than just it, or external validation from others. So I did a search through my mail and found he only ever left 2 messages on one video, possibly the only video of mine he ever watched. Actually, doing a search for his name in my mailbox, I have never received a notification that he subscribed to me, so he wasn't even a subscriber. And looking at Manboob's own evidence, once again there is that one and only video of mine. Hardly a devoted fan. So basically, he left 2 comments on one of my videos, and 1 comment of one of Steph's videos. Wow. This is really weak stuff, even for Manboobz. Seriously Futrelle, is this all you've got? Because seriously mate, it's looking kind of pathetic. Using his logic, if I went and subscribed to his YouTube channel, or even just commented on one of his videos, he would now be responsible for my hour-long obsessively anti-feminist videos. What an incredibly piss-poor argument, Dave, how utterly pathetic. And the really ironic thing is, if it wasn't for people like Manboobz Futrelle spreading lies about the MRM, I wouldn't have any material for these videos. But as it is, I've got enough material to last for years. What's that say about your camp, Dave? But if you think Dave is bad, then check out this comment in his comment section. Let's see if he becomes a MRA martyr like Elliot Rogers. My money's on no, because he isn't white. I can't decide if that's a good thing or not. Wow, how fucking delusional are these arseholes? Well, EJ the other one, I have just one thing to say to you.
Fuck you, what you wanna do? We give a fuck about you, so fuck the whole crew.
Dishonest denial. One of the most interesting phenomena surrounding the men's rights movement is how many men will strenuously deny having any association with it, even while parroting its talking points.
Ah, here we go. More false association propaganda. Poor Steve, as a YouTube atheist, he should be familiar with the concept of the circular argument. As anyone who has argued with creationists in the comments section has heard, God exists because the Bible says so, and of course the Bible is correct, because God says so. Of course, this is an extremely weak argument, as the only evidence for Proposition 1 is Proposition 2, and the only evidence for Proposition 2 is Proposition 1. And the argument tries to pull itself up by its own bootstraps. Another example might be the statement, "I always tell the truth, because I'm not a liar." And proof that I'm not a liar is that I always tell the truth. These statements do not prove or provide evidence for their claim. They could be true or false, and no one would know based on them alone. So how is Steve, and the many others like him, doing this? Well, they start with a false assumption, which is usually something like, all MRAs are misogynists and hate women. Or it could be all MRAs are right-wing, or anti-abortion, or racist, or some other claim which at this point is just a claim without evidence. Next they try to find that evidence. But instead of finding actual MRAs, who self-identify as MRAs, and actually advocate for the rights of men, they only find those who match the description of misogynist women haters. They then make a second assumption, based on the first assumption alone, that these examples of misogynistic women haters are MRAs. Now that the second proposition, which is nothing more than an assumption based on the first assumption, is used to support the first assumption. So all we have is a false assumption based on a bigoted false stereotype, supported by a second false assumption, and around we go. Of course, many people see through this and point it out, at which point individuals like Steve simply double down and say, well, they sound like MRAs, or they have the same talking points as MRAs. Yet strangely, their evidence is almost always devoid of actual examples of MRAs. And if they do happen to include any actual MRA examples, it's usually a handful of quotes from Paul Elam, all of which come from 3 articles. Or other quotes taken completely out of context. But even these are rare, as usually they will use Elliot Rodger, or pickup artists, or the amazing atheist, or some random troll on the internet. If the MRA talking points are the same, then why not use actual MRAs? It's a simple question. Of course the answer is, because they would find it almost impossible to put forward a case if they did. And individuals like Steve really don't care about being factual, they only care about silencing and demonizing those they don't like at any cost. Next.
And really, who can blame them? The men's rights movement is so toxic, so obviously fueled by bigotry and male insecurity that even people who agree with everything MRAs typically say don't want to be taken for one.
Of course Steve never provides any evidence, just ad homs and stereotypes. Next.
Luckily, if you're a guy who is sick and tired of being called an MRA when you're not one, there's a real easy fix. Just stop being such a sexist crybaby. Try it. You might be surprised how well that works for you.
And now this wonderful article from Addicting Info. This female student was murdered on campus, and men's rights activists are celebrating. So before getting into the article, let's examine the headline. It claims that men's rights activists, note plural, meaning more than one, are celebrating someone's death, presumably because she was female. Now I consider this a pretty serious claim, so I hope the author, Carrie Ann Mendoza, has some evidence to back it up. Let's take a look. In April this year, 20-year-old University of Mary Washington student Grace Mann was found bound and choked to death in her campus residence. This month, so-called men's rights activists are celebrating her death, claiming it served a purpose. Once again, please note that she uses the plural of activists, implying more than one. So I hope she will provide proof of at least 2 individuals who are actually MRAs. Next. While no trial has yet been held to confirm the circumstances behind Mann's murder, one possibility is that she was killed for her prominent role in feminist activism on the campus in Fredericksburg, Virginia. Mann was a member of the group Feminists United, which published an op-ed in the school paper in January to exposed the insidious misogyny and hatred on campus. The most egregious example of this insidious misogyny was a violent chant performed by the school's rugby team at a party last fall. The chant celebrated rape, murder, and necrophilia against whores. A male friend of Feminist United President Paige McKenzie managed to record the song, which included the lyrics, "Finally found a whore, finally found a whore. She was right and dead. She was right and dead. Well, goddamn son of a bitch, we're gonna get it in. Goddamn son of a bitch, we're gonna get it in. Finally got it in, finally got it in, wiggle it all about, wiggle it all about. Goddamn son of a bitch, I couldn't get it out. Goddamn son of a bitch, we couldn't get it out." So by Carrie Ann Mendoza's own admission, we don't know why Grace Mann was murdered, but nonetheless Carrie Ann intends to use the murder for feminist propaganda. Next. Feminists United handed over the tape to college administrators who deliberated the matter for 4 months before acting. They chose to dissolve the entire men's rugby team indefinitely, and mandated all 46 members of UMW's Mothers Rugby attend sexual assault training classes. Immediately, furious supporters of the team hit Feminists United with a wave of harassment and threats online and on campus. As WHT8 reports, one supporter of the team warned that Feminist would burn if the team was suspended and that there will be no survivors. Another threatened that Dandy's about to kill a bitch or two. When Feminists United reported these threats to the school administration, they were reportedly told that the school could do little about them. Okay, so clearly it was a heated situation, and could possibly be the cause for the murder. Just 1 month after the team's suspension, Mann was killed. After a brief manhunt, the prime suspect Steven Vanderbreel is now in custody. He is a returning student, and former member of the rugby team. Although this is technically true, Carrie Ann Mendoza leaves out a couple of very important facts in her attempt to link the murder to the rugby team. Firstly, Steven Vanderbreel was a member of the rugby team 9 years prior, not a member of the suspended team. And secondly, they were housemates, which might be an important thing to mention, don't you think? Now maybe Steven Vanderbreel killed her, maybe he didn't. Maybe it was over the rugby team, or possibly it was over the rent, or maybe he was in love with her, or was nuts, and she was playing her stereo too loud. Who knows? I'm happy to let the police figure it out, and for it to go to trial, before making my mind up. But the point is, Carrie Ann Mendoza's claim that it was over the rugby chant is speculation at best. Next. Feminists United have since joined with the Feminist Majority Foundation to file a Title IX complaint with the Department of Education charging the University of Mary Washington with a systemic failure to protect members of the group from a sexually hostile school environment, from sex-based cyber assaults, and from threats of physical and sexual violence. Okay, so we are a fair way into the article, and apart from the title and the opening paragraph, there has been no mention of MRAs. But she is now about to make her case. But not everybody is sad that Mann was murdered. Mike Olk of the Feminism is a Fraud blog describes Mann's death as the inevitable result of the unwillingness of feminists to learn misandry is not a joke. Prior to Mann's killing, Olk had written a post predicting that one day a feminist wearing an ironic "kill all men" t-shirt will walk down the wrong street, enter the wrong room and encounter the wrong man. A man that does not value her as a woman and chooses not to treat her as an equal. The man will not see the t-shirt as ironical humor, but be offended and beat her savagely, laughing as he licks the tears from her crying eyes. He writes that Mann's death means that his prediction has somewhat been proven true. Furthermore, he promises even greater violence will be perpetrated against feminists, as some types of males are going to take that badly with predictable results. He finished his piece by stating, "This young woman's death serves a purpose. She took one for the team." So who is Mike Olk? He's no MRA I've ever heard of. Maybe we should check out his blog that Carrie Ann Mendoza links to. And look at that, it's a Tumblr page. How interesting. So clearly he is an anti-feminist, but I couldn't find anything about men's rights. I did a search for both the terms MRA and men's rights, and both times got no results. So I think it's reasonably safe to say that Mike Olk is not an MRA. Not only that, but he is an individual. One person. So why would Carrie Ann Mendoza repeatedly claim that men's rights activists, plural, are celebrating? Using this logic, I could just grab any random comment on Tumblr, claim the person is a feminist, and then claim that all feminists think that way. Oh look, here's one. Sounds like a feminist, must be a feminist, right? And that must mean all feminists think that way, every last one of them, right? You see, if you want to make the standard of evidence so low, then everyone loses. But I'm not done with this article yet. Because some of the comments, wow, what can I say? I think the entire rugby team needs to be taken into custody and prosecuted as accessories to murder. Yeah, great plan, who cares if they are actually guilty, right? Next. My daughter, in the ultimate act of defiance and opposition to her own family, married a male rights activist, takes his side on everything, promotes an insane agenda which is directed towards taking away equal pay for equal work, and directed towards an innate hatred of all feminists, and most women, and I find her to be absolutely appalling. She was not raised that way. She was not raised to think that way. However, once she got programmed into that way of thinking, they've been using her ever since. Male rights activists have went from advocating for men's rights to opposing any and all rights for women, and that's just ridiculous. The simple truth is this: feminism is nothing more than the idea that women are human beings too and would like to be respected as such with equal pay for equal work, etc. I do not understand why men's rights activists would celebrate such a thing, but if they are, it's probably because they themselves were involved. This is the shameful silliness that has become America. Do I really need to comment on that one? One more. If men would step up and be men, women wouldn't have to step on their toes. We live in a society that men take what they want, and don't take responsibility for the things they do. We have broken families that women have to fix and be both mom and dad. I think these young punks don't understand that feminism doesn't mean we want to be men, but want to be respected for doing the same job as a man. Usually we do it better while wearing heel with a baby on each hip, cooking, going over homework, and in general solving the problems of the world. Feminists just want respect that men give each other because of their anatomy. Well, I'm sorry we have vaginas. You couldn't go through half of what we go through every month, let alone when we give birth. Face it, men, you should fear someone that can bleed for 7 to 10 days and not die. Not only that, the strength it takes to pass a 5 to 10 pounds human into this world. You should be in awe of females, not hate them for want equality and respect. We are more than just a receptacle for your anatomy. Grow up, look at your world, and decide where you would be without the woman that gave birth to you. Wow, best argument against feminism that I've heard in a long time. Next.
Harassment of critics. The men's rights movement is reactionary by its very nature.
You mean the same way feminism was a reactionary movement against the patriarchy?
It lashes out at women and feminists in particular. On a daily basis, feminist writers and activists are deluged with hate mail and death threats from outraged men,
the vast majority of whom have nothing to do with the men's rights movement. I also find it interesting that Steve only acknowledges females receiving these threats, and only attributes them to males. The simple truth is, males are more likely to receive online threats, and 40% of online threats against females come from other females. I even know a female friend who was relentlessly hounded both online and offline by some of her former female acquaintances. It even cost her her job. But let's ignore that, Steve. Let's ignore that MRAs and Gamergaters have received bomb and death threats from your side. Let's ignore that members of your side have been doxxed and threatened by members of your own side. Let's ignore that this happens to many public figures, including politicians, celebrities, journalists, and even movie critics. Let's just ignore all that, Steve, because according to you, if you're not female and a feminist, then online harassment just doesn't count. Oh, and let's not forget, it only counts if done by a male, right? Next.
Some, like Lindy West or Anita Sarkeesian, are arguably better known for being victims of misogynist harassment than for their actual work.
Which speaks volumes about the quality of their work, not to mention their ideology. Next.
Others have been driven from the public sphere altogether, which is understandable, but is also a terrible shame, because that's what the harassers want. Unable to intelligently answer their critics, they attempt to intimidate them into silence. And when that doesn't work, when they are unable to overwhelm feminists with the sheer force of abuse, they resort to other equally vapid tactics, like
So let's have a quick look at some more of the comments from the Addicting Info article, from segment 4. I should give a warning though, best not to have anything in your hands, as you may be tempted to throw it at the screen. What is the difference between these men and the kind of people who have laughed, for decades, and would laugh now, if a black man had a noose thrown around his neck and was hauled off the ground and left hanging? What is the difference between these men and the people who pulled teeth out of the mouths of dead Jews who had been gassed to death, in order to retrieve gold fillings? What is the difference between these men and those terrorists who take machetes to those who cross them? What is the difference? None. Wow, so now writing an anti-feminist blog on Tumblr makes you equivalent to the KKK, the Nazis, and terrorists. No hyperbole there. And of course by these men, she means all MRAs. Next. MRAs, and anti-feminists, are like white power advocates. They already have the power, they've always had the power, but they're terrified and outraged at the thought of giving up any of that power. Their underlying mindset is always, we do what we want. Wow, so advocating for fathers' rights, the basic human right of bodily integrity, the male homeless, male victims of domestic and sexual abuse, and trying to fix the problem of male suicide, is acting just like white power advocates? I never knew that. Next. These men are no better than the Boko Haram in the jungle that kidnap and rape women. They are no better than the Taliban, denying women education and autonomy. They are no better than the men in ISIS, raping women and young girls. No better at all. Now to be fair, I don't know if she is talking about the rugby team, or MRAs. Although, come to think of it, they are probably the same group in her mind, just some giant conglomerate of testosterone-fueled boogeymen, out to get her. I have to wonder though, is she aware that Boko Haram murdered boys? Probably not. Next. I will be more than happy to take these so-called men out back and break their knees. Guys like these, men's rights activists need to be reminded where they got life from, violently if required. Disrespect my wife, mother, sisters, aunts and friends, and we have a problem. More men to stand up against these assholes. This culture of misogyny must end. Violently if required? That sounded like an online threat to me.
Are deluged with hate mail and death threats from outraged men.
Another woman is dead for speaking out about feminism. I echo her last fight, misogyny is not a joke. It is not some hobby horse that angry women ride around to piss men off. It killed 18,000 American women in the last 12 years. This means that more women have been killed at the hands of their husbands and boyfriends since 9/11 than Americans died during 9/11, and in all terror attacks and wars since. This year, the country will spend $38 billion on homeland security, and $598 billion on defense. It is estimated that America will spend just $4 billion addressing violence against women. It is long overdue that we take violence against women, and the attitudes which promote it, with the seriousness they deserve. Oh, but it gets worse. Next. Not only are they half-grown morons, they're organized half-grown morons, complete with cherry-picked statistics, oh, and little, tiny weenies as a result of mindless, shrieking circumcision zombies, no doubt. I told you to ask your mommies before using the internet, little boys. She's right upstairs. Wow, great argument. I'd hate to face this guy in a debate. Next. I think it is disgusting that the school administration allowed such an anti-woman, threatening atmosphere to exist, even when it was brought to their attention. The so-called men's rights activists are a bunch of violent, angry bullies that hate women for imaginary slights. The lack of rights they espouse exists only in their own minds. Women do not want to take their rights away, women just want the same rights that men take for granted. Oh, women just want the same rights that men take for granted? We've all heard this type of comment before, right? What's our usual response? Maybe, could you name one right in the West, that men have, that women don't? Keep this in mind, it's important later. To be fair though, there were some comments calling out Addicting Info for its bullshit. Bullshit article. Hard for me to say that, I really dig this site. This particular article however is unrepresentative of MRAs and their intentions. Go read Mike Olk's actual post and just 3 lines in, today my prediction has somewhat been proven true. I do not feel good about it. It's easy to quote only the first part and misconstrue the meaning of the post entirely, which is clearly what you've done. Which men's rights activists are celebrating the death of an innocent girl again. Demonizing isn't cool, AI. No matter who you are or who you're demonizing. So fuck off with the disingenuous bullshit. The responses are rather interesting. I'm sorry, but this mindset is entirely representative of MRAs. This is not the first time a noted MRA has celebrated the death of an uppity woman. Mike is not the first nor the last to call for death to anyone they consider a feminist. They write about it in agonizing detail. Stop making excuses for them. So Mike Olk is now a noted MRA? For the record, the word noted means, well known. Or famous. I thought I'd mention that, as it seems, there is at least one person on the internet who doesn't know the word's meaning. And we have both celebrated and called for the death of anyone considered a feminist? Really? Citation needed. And this bigot got a response. Jennifer reading really, do you know what goes on in the mind of MRAs? The answer is no, you don't because you or any other human can't, so you can't say shit about their mindset. And this comment also got a response. Men's rights activists. Men's rights activists. Men's rights activists. I do not understand what that is. What rights have been infringed upon, and by whom, that activists are called for? Men own the world. Women are second-class citizens. What kind of sophomoric, 12-year-olds think their rights have been abridged? Right to do what? Catcall? Rape? Dictate how women should manage their own reproduction? How much, or how little, child support should be paid? Threaten with equality of income? What? What fucking rights don't you have, you little twerp? Go ask your mommy if it's okay to be on the internet. I'm positive you're living in her basement. Oh look, another insightful comment from one of feminism's intellectual giants. So why am I showing you all this? Simple, if these same things had have been said by MRAs to feminists, it would be considered hate speech. Steve Shives and his like would be shining their white knight armor, and preparing to condemn us all, every last one of us, as if we all took part in writing these comments. Hypocrisy at its finest. Speaking of Steve. Next.
Derailment and distraction. Many MRAs engage in a sort of troll guerrilla warfare, infiltrating the comment sections of articles and videos that deal with women's issues, posting responses designed to paralyze discussion with irrelevant bickering.
What Steve actually means is, either disagreeing with the one true faith of feminist ideology, or defending ourselves against feminist slander, some examples of which we just saw in the last segment. And of course, MRAs never get nasty comments. Oh no, would never happen. I would never get a comment like this little gem. Another faceless anti-feminist man that is ugly as sin, got rejected by loads of women and now needs to bitch and whine all day on YouTube about how men have it tough. That one gave me a good laugh. Keep it up. Next.
Demands that feminists identify legal rights available to men but not to women.
Yes. And we saw the reason behind this in the last segment. When you have privileged first world feminists telling you that they are the most oppressed group on the planet, and still don't have equal rights to men throughout the West, they are going to get challenged on their bullshit. Obviously MRAs are going to ask, what rights do men have that women don't? Because I can name a few, that women have that men don't, the right to bodily integrity for example. For women to have equal rights with men, we would either have to give men more rights than we presently have, or take away rights presently held by females. Personally, I think giving men more rights than we presently have is the better option, which is why we should all be MRAs. Next.
Are common. There's also the ever-popular appeal to bigger problems, in which the MRA will express his dismay that feminists aren't more concerned with the plight of women in developing countries or the Muslim world.
You know, I am so glad that Steve brought up the appeal to bigger problems fallacy. Let's have a look at what it is. The fallacy of relative privation, or appeal to bigger problems, is an informal fallacy in which it is suggested an opponent's arguments should be dismissed or ignored, on the grounds that more important problems exist, despite these issues being often completely unrelated to the subject at hand. A well-known example of this fallacy is the response, but there are children starving in Africa, with the implication that any issue less serious is not worthy of discussion. So let me give you some examples of this fallacy. An MRA is talking about male genital mutilation, and a feminist will say, but FGM is worse. Because apparently for some unknown reason, we can only be against one at a time, instead of, you know, just fucking banning both. Or an MRA will be talking about the incredibly high male suicide rate, and we will hear every time, but women attempt it more often. Not only is this claim false, but it really has no relevance other than derailing the conversation, and making it about women's issues. If we attempt to talk about males statistically being the main victims of violence, we get told to shut the fuck up, as women are more afraid to walk alone at night. Because apparently being afraid, whether that fear is justified or not, is far more of a concern than actually being a victim. In fact, an amazing large proportion of our interaction with feminists involves the words, but women have it worse. And I'm talking about feminists who openly come into our discussion, into our space, and demand we shut the fuck up, because only women's issues count, because regardless of the actual circumstances, regardless of the facts or reality, in their minds, only women are allowed to have issues, and men's issues are trivial at best. The entire online feminist movement is a fallacy of relative privation. So thank you very much, Steve, for bringing up that topic. Oh, as for MRAs saying, what about the women in the third world? Well, it's usually in response to a well-educated, employed, upper to middle-class white female from the first world, claiming that she belongs to the most oppressed class in history, because vagina, and something about how men sit on trains. Because we all know that how men sit on trains is far more important than the 20 homeless guys she passed to get to the subway. Next.
It's not that he gives a shit about those women, he just thinks that feminists should worry more about them and leave sexist American assholes like him alone.
Sexist American arseholes? Oh, of course, all MRAs are from America, right? We are just all white male Americans, right? Even all the ones from India. Oh, hold on. But the point is, Steve, the many of the issues modern-day Western feminists put their time and energy into are petty and pathetic. like banning the word bossy, or demonizing someone based on the shirt he wore, or criticizing men for the way they sit, talk, walk, or do just about anything else. Yes, there are very serious issues facing women in the third world, and yes, there are issues facing women in the first world as well. But all we seem to hear about are trivial issues like the ones just mentioned. There is an exception to this, of course, and that's the very serious issue of female genital mutilation. We do hear a lot about that. Unfortunately, though, it's often used as a bludgeon to try to stop, or derail, any discussion of male genital mutilation. Next.
Still, this isn't the worst thing about the men's rights movement. When it comes to that, it's hard to get more disgusting and inexcusable than
So if you remember the end of part 24 of this series, I played a clip of a representative of the Southern Poverty Law Center, stating that they do not, in fact, class the men's rights movement as a hate group. Accompanying this clip, I had numerous images of angry feminists incorrectly claiming otherwise. One was of a Facebook entry, and I have been meaning to have a closer look at it since. It starts. Nasty MRAs, who are attacking feminist pages again, banned me from their page. Looks like they don't like information about them to be part of the discussion. Too much information is too much information. Here is the link to the discussion they banned me because of. The page she links to is called Exposing Feminism. And as you might have guessed from the title, it's an anti-feminism page, not an MRA page. Although to be fair, there is some crossover, as they will post MRA content, if it's anti-feminist in nature. So I can understand her calling them an MRA page, although technically they are not. Next. Pass this around and keep passing it around, to all feminists, and all feminist pages. If Facebook won't get rid of the MRA, then we can at least educate everybody about who and what they are. Shared information will prevent us from reinventing the wheel that so many of us go though with these people. The MRA, as far as I have heard from those I spoke with, are dangerous and violent men. From those I spoke to? That sounds like a reliable source. Let's continue. There are also women MRAs among them. They are well funded, and get laptops from the porn industry, to harass feminists on the internet. Really? Well funded? And free laptops from the porn industry? Why hasn't anyone told me about this? Where's my new laptop? And I like porn. Next. I suppose, feminists expose information which is against the interests of the porn industry. This can't be proven by me, but I do know that the MRA have been listed as a hate group by the SPLC. One has to wonder why they need to protect the porn industry when porn is legal and seems to be thriving in the US? Yeah, the reason she cannot prove it is because it's not true. We are not funded by the porn industry, and unfortunately we are not getting free laptops. Although if the porn industry is listening, I'm willing to take large sums of cash in a brown paper bag left on my doorstep overnight, or a free laptop, or both. Both would be good. And maybe we could work together on a video series. We could call it, Bring Out the Jugs. Just a thought. My people will do lunch with your people, or something like that. Next. Is there more to it? Child porn? Who knows, but I do know the MRA plan to attack us, feminists, on a regular basis, online. Wow, so this feminist makes up a fake connection to the porn industry, then makes an insinuation about child porn, and then finally accuses us of attacking feminists on a regular basis. Gee, I wonder why we would attack feminists on a regular basis? I'm sure it has nothing to do with the lies, hate, and misinformation spread on a daily basis by scumbags like this feminist. Nope. I'm sure it's got nothing to do with that. It's probably all that yucky toxic masculinity, or something. Next.
And rape apology. Men's rights activists attempt to minimize or dismiss concerns about rape in a variety of ways, ignoring the existence of acquaintance and spousal rape.
Really? Who's saying that? Come on, Steve, name names. In other words, citation needed, scumbag. Next.
Blaming rape victims for being promiscuous or dressing too provocatively.
Well, apart from one Polly Lem article, which is forever taken out of context, give us examples, Steve. Who are all these MRAs doing this? In other words, citation needed. Next.
Spreading fear and paranoia about a non-existent epidemic of false rape allegations, and generally acting as though making rape an easier crime for men to get away with is their primary goal, which it is. This is not a civil rights movement as it claims to be. This is a hate group, populated by resentful failures too weak to carry their own baggage.
So what was it Steve said earlier?
Because that's what the harassers want. Unable to intelligently answer their critics, they attempt to intimidate them into silence.
And that's exactly what Steve is trying to do here, with his rapist slur. He knows that just the accusation, made in the form of an ad hom attack, is enough to silence many men. The accusation itself is that bad. Which disproves rape culture, by the way, because if rape was normalized by society, it wouldn't contain such a sting, when even used as a slur, in an attempt to demonize a group. Steve hasn't made one legitimate argument to date, but I'm not totally surprised, as I suspect he is pandering to his Patreon supporters. But there is still a little bit of video left. Next.
They're some of the most pathetic human beings known to me, and their only redeeming quality is that they're so much damn fun to smack around.
You are welcome to try anytime.
Which is fitting, since most of them seem to think that's all women are good for.
Wow. Just when you thought the scumbag couldn't get any fucking lower. So Steve, what do you call a movement that goes around claiming others are rapists and abusers, based on nothing more than a difference in ideology? Sounds like a fucking hate movement to me. Just a word to any reasonable, open-minded feminists, who are actually interested in gender equality. Please, on behalf of your movement, loudly condemn this scumbag. Seriously. If you are actually interested in equality, if you really do have the best of intentions, please, on behalf of your movement, openly condemn this cunt for his hate speech. Publicly disown him. I dare you.
The hardest part is only picking 5. Catch you next time.
So Steve presents no facts, no evidence. Just innuendo, ad homs, slurs, and slander. He's not interested in having a constructive conversation, or finding a middle ground, or even understanding his opponent's point of view. He doesn't even give a fuck if what he says is true. All he is interested in is demonizing anyone who disagrees with his worldview. And it would seem, based on this video, that he's willing to say just about anything to do so. What an absolute scumbag. Next.
This is, and I quote, my comment from earlier about Gamergate. Fuck Gamergate. Fuck it to hell. Fuck all of its pseudo-intellectuals and outright trolls that think that just because they have a penis, they think they are the only ones allowed to play video games. Women are allowed to play video games and be just as hardcore as men. Also, women are not properly represented in games, and if you think they are, please shut the fuck up and fuck off. I have had just about enough of this humanity and its racism, sexism, ableism, homophobia, and general corruption. Gamergate, as far as I am concerned, deserves to be locked up in prison with the terrorists, murderers, and pedophiles of this planet. The reason, you may ask? Sexism gone crazy to the point of death threats. Also, don't even try defending Gamergate, because I don't want to hear it. Do you got that? I don't want to fucking hear what you pseudo-intellectual troll bags have to say. My reasoning for not wanting to listen is simple. it is because you will try pinning it on the women or the feminists anyways. So I don't want to fucking hear your biased bullshit. You've touched the wrong person, Gamergate. The wrong person. I will not be silenced as others were. I will not have my opinions censored by a bunch of half-witted misogynistic pricks who think they are better than the people that don't believe them or agree with them. And I will not be harassed into giving up my will to fight this battle. This is for the Zoe Quinns and Brianna Woos out there who have been harassed into silence by a bunch of misogynistic fucktards. Women can be gamers, women must be equally represented. Fuck Gamergate. Didn't have a good grip on my camera there. Derp.
Talk to me, don't talk to me. Dance with me, don't dance with me. No. Beep, beep. That's a brand new talk, but it's not very clear.
Hello. So I was going to go off on a fun rant about these little dudes who get their panties in a twist, prickly pricks and pussy nitpickers and the cod-swalloping nitwits. And I'll probably get back to that topic sometime. I think it needs to be addressed over and over again, for that matter. Things like, why so fat? Really? Why so fat? Why so many misogynators? Why so many men who don't work while their wives go to work, but they consider themselves to be these big anti-feminists and all kinds of BS?
Hold on a second. I thought we were all living in our mother's basements. But now we are bludgeoning off our hard-working wives? These people can't keep their false stereotypes straight. It's also interesting that she has a problem with an unemployed man with a working wife, but no doubt wouldn't have a problem if the genders were switched. There's some gender roles for you.
Okay, I'm going to stop myself. I'm not going off on that track, as fun as it might be. What I wanted to talk about was how we need more girls like you to tell the truth. Well, not the whole truth, just the truth that us faceless, voiceless pussies want you to tell. We don't want to hear about no feminism.
Feminists?
And we certainly don't want to get shown up by some woman with an IQ that's more than all of ours combined. Or these women that have a doctorate or two. After all, we know they didn't get a real doctorate. Only our pals who have so-called doctorates in history and underwater basket weaving.
I've just got to say, I would love to have a doctorate in underwater basket weaving. I can just imagine the conversation at parties. Someone might say, "So Bane, I hear you are a professor, mind if I ask in what field?" And I would reply, "Well actually, my doctorate is in the very competitive field of underwater basket weaving." And they would reply, "Oh, well I guess it's still better than gender studies."
No, they had to work for those doctorates. Anyways, we only want you women to have tits and ass and a womb.
And don't forget, equal responsibility for your actions. That's kind of important too.
And it would be helpful if you could speak up about what we want you to talk about, since we're not articulate enough to do so ourselves. But if you can't do that, then shut the fuck up.
Now, if you would shut the fuck up for the 50th millionth time.
Every time we don't like something, we just call it feminism. My God, they're lemmings.
I'm William, and I'm an MRA, a men's rights activist.
And I'm Jessica. I'm a feminist.
I hope you're having a really great day. Let's talk about manspreading. That's what I call sitting. Women complain a lot about manspreading. Something about how rude it is to take up all that space on public transportation.
I like to take up at least 5 seats with my bags, because women didn't have the right to vote for 20,000 years, and all men have always had the right to vote, so why shouldn't I do what I want?
Blah, blah, blah. Women sure are overly communicative.
All men are rapist scum.
First of all, I'd like to say I love women. My mother's one.
I hate men. Kill all men, especially the white ones.
Secondly, I need to manspread because I have a gigantic penis. And don't even get me started on my balls.
I believe in equality. That's why women deserve more than men. And because of my divine vagina, I'm going to take up as much space on the train as I want. After all, my shopping is important.
Look, I need 2 seats on the bus or the subway. I need 1 for my rear end and 1 for my testicles. I'm sorry, pregnant woman looking for a seat during a crowded rush hour train. My wang needs breathing room.
An elderly handicapped man actually had the nerve to ask me to move my bags so he could sit down. He said he thought he was having a heart attack or something. I was like, no way, creep, like, you're probably like a rapist or something. Besides, it's like my right to take up extra room with my bags.
I respect your opinion, feminist blogger, but I need you to respect my massive genitals.
All men are cunts. Smash the patriarchy.
It's hard enough being a man in this world, and you want to put restrictions on my comfort just so that other people can be comfortable? Come on.
Just because I come from a middle-class background in a first-world country, I'm well-educated, and have a high-paying job, doesn't mean I'm not the most oppressed person on the planet. I mean, even after taking up 5 seats with my shopping, I still had some bags I had to place on the dirty floor. If that's not oppression, then I don't know what is.
You should try manspreading. Go on. Your sexual organs might like it. In fact, I know they will. MRAs get a bad rap for being emotionally volatile and abusive and assholes.
Feminists get a bad rap for hating all men. This isn't true. We don't hate men. We just think they are all rapist scum that need to be herded into gas chambers for the good of humanity. That's not hate, that's just common sense.
That's just wrong. We're nice guys who just want what's ours. Let's just agree that men have a right to 2 seats on public transportation, and women have a right to smile when we tell you to smile.
Most men don't understand what feminism is. They think it's just hating on men all the time. And sure, that's true, but it's also the radical idea that women are human beings, and men aren't.